I am here with Jeff Jarrett. Where haven't you seen Jeff Jarrett, and where won't you see Jeff Jarrett? From Global Force Wrestling to a one-man show all over Fight. Jeff, how are you?
Good, man, Sean. Long time no talk. Been busy. Yeah, it's been a crazy summer and getting busier, and headed over to the UK as you referenced. So got a lot to talk about. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm interested in this work you've been doing with Fight, from the Global Force content that's coming up to the Ain't He Great event. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the Ain't He Great thing, just that entire process, quite frankly, just one thing led to another, and obviously it all started with the Hall of Fame induction. Since that time, and actually a little before that time, I was approached after it was announced, but before the induction, they sort of floated it by me and hooked on events. Those guys, I've worked with them for 15 years in event merchandising. The other promoters who are handling the merch and all that, I've worked with them since the early 90s at the early WWF days. So I've known both groups for a long time on a obviously a different working relationship, but they thought it would be a good time, and I first, somewhat said I'm not real sure about that, and then sort of one thing led to another, and then I said, all right, if I'm going to do it, I really, let's look at this, and I want it to be a priority for me, and really do it right. And then I said, okay, who's the host? And then we went after Kenny McIntosh of Inside the Ropes fame in the United Kingdom. He's the who's who, so to speak, of the spoken word tours, and he agreed to come on board under one condition, sort of it be a no holds bar event, which I enjoy. And so then out of that, my relationship with Fight goes back, 4 years now, when they were actually called Flips, and they were the distributors after New Japan approached us at Global Force to distribute Wrestle Kingdom 9 via pay-per-view in
Great
North America.
success.
It's crazy how one thing led to another, and their entire organization more or less pivoted and rebranded as Fight and went into the boxing, MMA, and professional wrestling world, and they do kickboxing now and Muay Thai and just all kind of things. And I have had a arm's length relationship for quite some time. We did a few things with them last year, but I have always really been drawn to their technology. This day and age, obviously didn't grow up in the streaming world like my kids do, but just the technology and the quality of it, and the encryption and all the technical side of things. I felt confident we could produce good content, but those kind of things are a big factor, buffering and all that kind of stuff. And so I was really drawn to them. And so we formed a partnership and announced it in May. And we had our eyes set, and one thing led to another with StarCast, and we can talk about that in a few minutes. But then
Sure.
Fight approached me, the top dog at Fight, said, hey, you got these shows. What about doing one of those live on Fight? And I'm like, no way. and then he's just like, it's
It's
obviously
funny. It's funny you mentioned that, actually. When I spoke to Bruce Pritchard and Comrade Thompson, who are gods in the podcast world right now, and I said, who else would you see that needs a podcast, that needs a show of some sort? And both of them said you without hesitation. So I'm not surprised that Fight and that all these people are interested in bringing you in for a one-man show.
it's crazy, Sean. And so we decided to do it, and it's going to be fun. It's Fight's technology. Literally, it is it's a transactional pay-per-view all over the world. So $10, watch it live from Sheffield, England. And who would have thought, literally, that the Hall of Fame would have put all these wheels in motion? But they have.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of calling an MMA event on Fight before. I'm going to do that again in a month or two.
Oh, great.
We mentioned the Global Force wrestling shows you have coming up as well. There was a merger briefly with Impact Wrestling, and that was kind of pulled back. But I noticed they still were able to keep the championship belts. Was that something that you gave up physically in the deal, or how did that come about?
Well, we'll just sort of leave that no comment, and for all the obvious reasons. That's
Sure.
a situation that I wish those guys nothing but the best. Sanjay Dutt is a longtime friend of mine. And so, but no, that for all the obvious reasons and some so not so obvious reasons fell apart. But we're working on continuing. I'll say just to no inflammatory, nothing like that.
Sure.
Just sort of to untangle that situation. And belts are a part of that. Obviously not a major part, but are a part of that.
What was it?
So
What was it like going head to head with your boy Sanjay? They ran an Impact show while you were on the stage at the Hall of Fame this year.
I heard that. I heard that. I gotta say, it probably wasn't anything to do with myself, but
Yeah,
I'd say the Hall of Fame got quite a bit more of an audience than
sure.
them. But I affectionately, he's known in my world, in my house, as Ritesh.
Yeah.
Sanjay's a good man.
Yeah, I always like talking to him. To kind of put a bow on that, one of the most memorable moments of Impact in the last several years was the promo when you and Karen both came back. And I've said this, I thought that was the best promo of the entire year, both you and Karen. That was such a heartfelt speech that you all gave, I think in 2015 when you came back. And that was pretty incredible. What kind of feeling did you get from Karen? Because Karen doesn't often cut promos like that at the very least. What were the emotions going through you when you were asked to come back for the Hall of Fame and that company's Hall of Fame?
Oh wow, Sean, you're not really a curveball, but an unexpected question. And I got to say, the real simple thing. Obviously, I've been in the business 30 years plus, and my family and 3 generations, everything go with it. So regardless of if you want to call it a promo or not, that is what it was. But very very easy to do. Spoke from the heart, and I can assure you, Karen spoke from the heart. That was raw, really. As you say it, I can think back that when we got back to the hotel that night, we had our kids with us and the suite, the connecting rooms and all that. I can remember Karen going and laying down on the bed, and then she got up and sat in a chair and just talked about, I don't say but she was emotionally drained because it was a very emotional night and very unexpected. We caught people by surprise, and that's hard to do. But that is something that I have. I've been asked about that off and on since that took place, and got I'll say a very favorable response. The actual Hall of Fame induction speech that I gave was edited up quite a bit, and I understand why for TV time. But I believe some of the best stuff was left. I don't believe, in my opinion, my humble opinion. The best stuff was left on the cutting room floor, and that was very, very emotional because, from June 19th, 2002, up through what was that? Like you said, 2015.
Yeah.
A lot of emotion, a lot of ups and downs, and in between, and that was my chance to really thank the people that, quite frankly, that were in the trenches with me day in, day out. The people behind the scenes that many, many times, more often than not, that were behind the scenes of the cameras at TNA that put in, I can't tell you how many hours upon hours and working through, we were a small crew, both office staff and administrative and production and the warehouse guys. And, early in the days of Black Friday sales and Don West is selling merch as fast as we can pack it. They're shipping on Thanksgiving weekend and through the holidays and through the Christmas holidays and all through that. That was my opportunity to really thank those people and people that had really, really gave their heart and soul to that organization. That was my opportunity. So it was, yes, you can call it a promo, but it was as real of emotion as you could possibly have, not only for me, but Karen as well.
Yeah, I love that moment. To end the kind of retro questions, I noticed in your collections episode, you said that in you were offered in 1990 by WCW as a 22-year-old a deal, and you wanted to go, but your father persuaded you not to. How did he persuade you not to?
That's the diplomatic way maybe to say it. Uh, it's like, no, you're not ready. I talked about this the other day on Sean Mooney's podcast. He was asking, and it was a time that you got to think in 1990, Sting was red hot, Ultimate Warrior was red hot, WCW, both companies, Clash of the Champions and the Hulkamania was, it was at the tail end of the red hot red and yellow run. But it was it was still a really, really, the business was hot, and Dusty and team, they were, and also at that time, and I don't know if it went into that on the collections, but a guy named Mean Mark Callis came through Memphis, and a guy named Steve Williams, later known as Stone Cold, had come through the territory. There were several guys that had, come through the territory at Memphis and in Dallas and gone on to WCW and WWF at that time. And so, as a 22-year-old kid, as much or more than anything, I wanted to get on that stage, and I wanted to start making more money, like any normal 22-year-old kid. But Mo Man, through his wisdom, said, "You're not ready." And in hindsight, he was right. And when I did get to the WWF in '93 and Double J and everything that went with it, things took off quickly there.
I know that you had been a babyface up until that point. The WCW offer, were they going to bring you in as a babyface or as a heel like you later became in WWF?
Never even got to those discussions.
Ah, okay, that's fair. Tell me about your involvement in StarCast.
Wow, that is something. What a hats off to Conrad Thompson.
He's done great.
I mean, when you just really sit back and look at the event that has been created, and it goes without saying All In as well, but StarCast, there's been lots of shows, wrestling shows, that have been put on, but this event, to my knowledge, nothing. The WrestleCon and the High Spot brand, they do it so good around WrestleMania, and it's an enormous, I'll call it, autograph convention, and those are done in baseball, football, basketball, all that kind of stuff. This is a wrestling podcast convention, with the who's who lineup, and when we started looking at the marketing materials, and it's literally generations going back 5 decades, and when you put it, and I almost want to say it's truly it's ready made for TV, because it is the who's who, the people that don't report on it, but actually lived it, breathed it, slept it, ate it, all that to go with it, and when we sat back and fight, and we've got projects coming up in October and November and December, and we've got a couple that we've got penciled in for first quarter of 2019. We've got a vision where we want to go with Fight and Global Force, but man, StarCast literally just jumped off the page, and again, I'll say it again, hats off to Conrad, because he there's a promoter somewhere in his family tree, because he has a knack for, and I say this out of complete respect. He really knows, because I believe he is first and foremost, like myself, he's a wrestling fan first, so he knows what a wrestling fan wants. And I believe that there's a lot of equity, I'll call it, in that type of vision. And he has produced, put out there, sold tickets, an event that is, I put it in a tweet the other day, it's groundbreaking and history making. And I'm really, really glad that myself and the Fight team and everybody is going to get the opportunity to broadcast it all over the world.